Time right now is 8:30. Good Wednesday morning. Welcome to the WLBB Community Voice here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3, streaming live online at newstalk1330.com. And this morning, we're on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. I'll introduce you to my handsome young guests here in just 1 second. This morning, we're talking about tort reform. It was one of the most discussed issues during the Georgia legislative session of 2025. Republican Governor Brian Kemp made that his top priority and kind of encouraged for that to happen, and they did make it happen. By the end of the session, I guess it was about 3 weeks ago, that bill right now, I think it's SB 68, sitting on Brian Kemp's desk to be signed right now. Previously, everything we've talked about as far as tort reform, we've had legislators in here, and I think they pretty much supported it on the show anyway, talked about why it was important and why Kemp wanted it, but there are different perspectives. Just reading some articles this morning and got a better idea of why some people are not as supportive about this. But this morning, I believe at least one of my guests is going to kind of lay it out straight for us, and the other one might be enthusiastically against it. We'll find out how that turns out. But this morning, John Jackson, Cade Parian, my guests. Gentlemen, please, first of all, introduce yourselves. Tell us why you guys are qualified to talk about tort reform. Obviously, attorneys.
Yes, thank you, Colin. I am John Jackson. I own a local law firm here in Carrollton, primarily doing personal injury, which is torts. So anytime you bring up tort reform, it's going to, at least I'm going to pay attention. And no, obviously I'm not for tort reform. I don't think it's fair, but we're here to inform. The bill has passed. We're not here to persuade anybody to vote for
You're
or
saying
against
we?
it.
Don't you just mean you? You're probably here just to.
Well, no, we're both against.
You're both against it.
We're both against it. One's just a little louder than the other.
Where's that guy?
But no, I just want to talk to the people of Carrollton about what the bill does and how it is. It's more fluff than substance, maybe, is kind of where we are.
Okay, that's interesting. And I'll try to ask any questions that pop up. But I mean, for the most part, I'm more than happy to let you guys balance this show out. Family, how long you been here in Carroll County?
Well, I have been in Carrollton since 2005. My wife is from here, the former Mandy Parish, Mandy Jackson, and I have two daughters who will turn 16 next week. So insurance rates are also very personal to me. It's just as it is to most of the tort reformers, is insurance rates. So I understand what they're talking about. And so, but yeah, I've been here 20 years and plan on being here forever and doing the same type of work that I've been doing for probably the past 10 years for sure. I've worked for insurance companies as well. So I know I know both sides, just as Cade has as well.
All right, Cade Parian, the voice of the Carrollton Trojans on KISS 102.7.
But not this morning. I'm the voice of Cade Parian.
Yes,
so my name's Cade Parian. I'm a lifelong Carrolltonian, born Tanner Hospital back in the day, and practicing lawyer here. If you don't recognize my face, you'll see it pretty soon, probably when you're driving down the road. But my law firm, Parian Lawyers, has offices in Carrollton and Bremen. I only do personal injury plaintiff work, although we do criminal defense and domestic work out of the Bremen office as well. My wife, Kaysen, is a registered nurse. I've got 3 kids, one who's a freshman at the University of Arkansas, a daughter at Carrollton City Schools, and a young plot twist named Bennett, who's 2 years old. So we spread them out pretty good, but, that's me in a nutshell.
are you got issues against Bennett now?
Well, I'm too old to have Bennett, but I love him to death. Yeah. Okay, he makes me very sleepy.
I was assuming he was named after no, that's Beck, the quarterback for.
Well, yeah, Stetson Bennett. I think John Jackson actually brought that up.
I call him Stetson.
Yeah, it never crossed my mind until that was brought up. So no. So yeah, my first child's name's Beckham, and when he was born, that's a family name, but David Beckham showed up in the United States right after Beckham was born. So everybody was asking, "Do you like soccer?" And the answer's no. So,
all right, guys, thanks for joining us this morning. Thanks for being so willing to talk about this. Again, this bill is sitting on the tort reform bill sitting on Brian Kemp's desk at this point. Tort, yeah, I'm curious. The word tort. I mean, obviously, I associate it with.
Well, there's tort. I always make the joke. In law school, we take a class in the first year called torts. Okay,
101.
torts to the general public, you think one of two things. You either think about the legal tort, or if you have no idea that word exists, you wonder where the bakery is. And a tort, simply defined, is a wrong done to another party. Things such as negligence, battery, nuisance. I mean, there's a host of definitions for the word tort that fall under tort. What this bill primarily deals with, we'll call it the car wreck side of things, the truck wreck side of things, the slip and fall side of things, as well as a big piece dealing with negligent security, which we'll get to in a little while.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The word tort, obviously, before I started law school in 2000, I had no idea what that word meant. I did first year, first class. Every law student, every lawyer who was alive took torts their first year. I noticed throughout the legislative session, tort reform turned into lawsuit abuse. They turned the media to lawsuit abuse so people would understand that more, that it's against frivolous lawsuits, and we're going to talk about that too. About there's already things in place to stop frivolous lawsuits. So yeah, tort reform changed to lawsuit abuse just to make it more of a public outcry, I guess to say. But torts. There's intentional torts and unintentional torts, and mostly this tort reform bill is against unintentional torts, where people just cause accidents.
And is it physical harm and mental harm, or is it?
Yes.
So here's what it boils down to. As John was talking about, the word tort reform is the word you see in the newspapers, okay? But on social media, you see a lot about frivolous lawsuits. All right, John and I, in both our practices, John and I have been friends for all 20 years he's been in Carrollton, and our legal practices have, quite frankly, followed the same trajectory, okay? In what we do in representing plaintiffs in personal injury cases, John and I both, we're not going to represent someone who caused the accident. Okay, you're never going to see someone come into our office and say, "Hey, I rear-ended somebody yesterday and I'm hurt. Mm-hmm. Will you represent me?" Neither one of us are going to say, "Sure." All right, because that, quite frankly, 99% of the time would be a frivolous claim. Okay, of course, there's a 1% chance that something crazy happens that would result in negligence causing injury to a quote-unquote at-fault party, but that's so rare it's not even funny, okay? And frivolous, the politicians like shiny words, right? So words that will arouse the public's emotions, okay? We see that in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, we're seeing it on a state level. Even more unfortunately, I feel like we're seeing it on a local level these days, where people are using words just to incite emotion out of constituents. And lawsuit abuse and frivolous lawsuits are things that make people go, "Oh, those ambulance chasers, ambulance chasers, ambulance chasers, ambulance chasers." I'm not chasing any ambulances. I mean, look at me. But it's one of those things where we're not filing claims on behalf of people who are at fault.
Time right now is 8:40. We'll take our first break and come back and actually talk about this bill in the second segment. Let me do this. When I was a kid, I remember, and this could have been my mother just trying to shut me up when I asked, when businesses would leave their lights on overnight. I think she told me at that time they had to do it, or there was a law because maybe somebody who broke into a business stubbed their toe or broke their ankle because it was dark, so they hurt themselves, and that was a result of that. I mean, that's a frivolous lawsuit.
That would be a
right?
frivolous lawsuit.
That would be a frivolous lawsuit.
Because they'd be a trespasser, and you owe almost no duty to them to keep them safe.
All right, we're going to take our break right now and come back and continue our conversation about tort reform. John Jackson, Cade Parian, my guests. If you'd like to post a comment or question to the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page, feel free to do that, and I'll take a look at that during our conversation. Community Voice brought to you by Tanner Health System and Oak Mountain Academy.
The Entrepreneur Scholar Journey at Oak Mountain Academy is designed to provide students with a clearly defined curriculum-based track to acquire essential knowledge and skills for success in business and leadership. Critical areas include identifying entrepreneurial characteristics, selecting a value position, and business model development. I'm Patrick Uran, head of school, inviting you to journey with us on the mountain. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us. Discover your journey at OMA. Prepare, explore, and achieve.
Consider the Mobius strip. Take a strip of paper, twist it, connect the ends. This connection forms a continuous loop. Seamless, infinite. That's how your healthcare should be too. At Tanner Health, the Mobius is our symbol and our promise, representing our continuum of care and our commitment that the services you need will be here for you always. We're not just changing healthcare, we're redefining it. See more at tanner.org.
Welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. My name is Colin Worthington. My guest this morning, John Jackson, Cade Parian, local attorneys, and we're talking about tort reform. It's basically, this show is Tort Reform 101, and I'm getting good and educated, and hopefully you guys listening to and watching us at home we'll take some information out of this. I have read, the pros and the cons. I mean, initially it's like, hey, we want to stop the frivolous lawsuits, and it kind of benefits businesses a lot. I think that was the target, and I saw some people against it, that it actually is going to hurt victims, potential victims. So you guys wanted to start with what this bill does. I mean, maybe lay it out flat what it does, and then Cade can comment on that.
Okay. Well, look, I mean, I don't want to get into specifics of the bill. First of all, it's a very long bill. It addresses a lot of different topics.
And it is SB 68. Right?
SB 68. There's a companion bill, SB 69, which deals with lawsuit funding, which nobody really cares about. But the bill initially designed or was supposed to lower insurance rates for Georgians and Georgia businesses. Insurance companies came to, I can just hear it from my insurance broker friends, we're not going to be able to write insurance in this state anymore unless we have tort reform. That's what they say. So they have put together this bill to just lower values of claims. It doesn't limit the number of lawsuits at all, in my opinion.
Are we going to see our rates go down because of this?
Well, I do know, and
There's the golden question,
I'm not
my
a
friend.
I'm not just a legislator, and I wasn't there, but I understand that there were at least talks. They had an opportunities to put in to this bill or a companion bill caps on insurance premium hikes or hikes,
yeah.
And it was voted down. There's nothing in this bill that promises Georgians that insurance rates will go down.
It's so complex how insurance carriers set their rates. I mean, let's be honest. Right now, we're talking about tariffs, where car parts are coming in from all over the world that are going to be subject to tariffs when they hit the U.S. border. Well, when you get into a car wreck, what happens? Your bumper is bent, and you need a new bumper. Well, where does that bumper come from? A lot of them come from China. Okay, so your insurer is going to end up having to pay more for that bumper. So the cost of cars and the cost of repairing those cars affect rates. Okay, torts and lawsuits are a very, very small piece of this puzzle. Okay, contrary to popular opinion, which is the media, like you, Colin, and me on Friday nights.
That's right.
What happens is the lawsuits you hear about are the ones where somebody spills a little coffee on their leg and gets $40 million.
Yeah.
The reality of the situation is that happens once every blue moon by some stroke of luck. Every card falls right. The reality of when John Jackson and I go to trial, the odds are stacked against us. All right, I'm going to go ahead and tell you. And this bill, like John said, It does nothing to curb lawsuits. All right. What it does is it attempts to draft a way into lowering the claim amounts. All right. In reality, other states around Georgia have already enacted tort reform. I've been practicing in Alabama my entire career. Alabama has had some of the most drastic tort reform measures of any state in the United States. Well, anyone listening to us on Community Voice will agree with me that when you drive around Alabama, what do you see on the billboards? Who is the most prolific billboard you see other than my own? Alexander Shannara. He's in Birmingham, Alabama. All right.
That's right. He's got 3 in a row, doesn't he?
He's everywhere. And, Florida has enacted tort reform. Okay? They said enacting tort reform is going to bring rates down. That hasn't happened. And now we're seeing in Florida where the legislature is now at war with the governor, the Republican legislature is at war with their Republican governor because they feel like data was hidden from them related to the cost of litigation on insurance. All right? So natural disasters, cost of repairs. It's so complex. It's easy to blame lawyers. All right? We get it. There's lawyer jokes. I have to talk to lawyers all day. John has to talk to lawyers all day. John and I talk to each other all day. We don't like talking to lawyers. All right? It's easy to blame lawyers, politicians, lobbyists, used car dealers, pawn shop owners. We're all in the same bucket. We get it. But here's the thing. The legislators had an opportunity to work with the Georgia trial lawyers to come up with a common sense, agreed upon approach to address the issues that were there. Okay? That did not happen. All right? The Georgia trial lawyers were willing, the Georgia Trial Lawyers Association was willing to come to the table and give. Those talks never happened.
Well, let's talk about how does this bill pretend or allege that it is going to lessen lawsuits, the number of lawsuits?
We'll talk about negligent security, which is the one that originally talked about was the one that it was supposed to address is when someone's hurt on someone's property because basically the criminal acts of a third party, negligent security. It makes those cases much more difficult. Cade and I aren't doing negligent security cases in Carrollton, Georgia. That's all Metro Atlanta. That was the big thing. That's what got a lot of attention.
And what he means by negligent security, Colin, is if we're sitting right here and somebody walks in this door right now with a gun and kills us, okay, under the old law, we would be able to sue Steve Graddick for not providing enough safe measures at the front door. Okay, that's not okay. All right, that places too much of a burden onto.
Well, what if a month ago I told Steve Graddick that some guys threatened to come here and shoot us all with a gun, and he didn't do anything about it?
Well, if there's a pattern, it's different. Okay, but knowing WLBB Studios, there is no pattern. Okay, but that some of that has to be addressed. Okay, if somebody's walking across the parking lot of an apartment complex and something bad happens to them, okay, and the owners of that apartment complex had no clue that anybody else was doing bad acts in that parking lot, under the old law, there was still an avenue to get compensated for that. And quite frankly, some of those cases would go to trial and have some big verdicts for millions of dollars. Well, those big verdicts from those big millions of dollars far outpace the value of the apartment complex itself. So that doesn't make sense. Okay, so that needed to be fixed. And, they went a long way in trying to fix it, but it would have been better done had we had all the parties at the table and, put the legal minds together.
And why couldn't they even just fake that? I mean, brought the trial lawyers in there and listened to them and go through that process. I mean, they had 40 days, 60 days. It ended up being. why not just listen to that process and then just stump you at the end?
Well, Cade's more involved with the statewide trial lawyers with the executive council, and he, from what I understand, just watching the listserv, and Cade can speak more specifically, the GTLA was there every single day trying, and Cade knows more specifically.
Politics is weird. You know that. Politics, like I said earlier, it's all about the shiny objects, all right, and who, lobbyists, who's going to win. And unfortunately, when that happens, when you get into lobbyist wars, the legal minds who should be drafting the statutes don't get involved in drafting the statutes.
How many attorneys are in our legislators?
It's a pretty good bit. It's
20%.
Yeah, it's a pretty good bit. But here's an example of how this legislative session went. When this bill, SB 68, passed out of the state Senate, it went over to the House, right? When it gets to the House, there's a committee called the Judicial Civil Committee, okay, which is what this bill deals with, the civil practice of law in Georgia.
Now, is that the one TPS? Is he the chairman of that one?
He is on the Judicial Non-Civil.
Non-Civil, okay.
But Judicial Civil Committee, who is supposed to be tasked with dealing with these types of bills. That didn't happen. It went to the House Rules Committee. Okay, so politics, gamesmanship.
Guys, let's take our final break. We'll come back with about 6 minutes, and I'm pretty much just going to hand it off to you. Maybe you guys can find some things you think are important to get across in the program. We'll come back in 1 minute. Community Voice brought to you by Tanner Health System and Oak Mountain Academy.
Oak Mountain Academy is an innovative school of academic excellence celebrating over 61 years. I'm Patrick Uran, head of school, inviting you to join us on the mountain to see our mission and vision in action. Academic excellence, a faith-based environment, and dynamic opportunities are just a few of the reasons our families choose Oak Mountain Academy. Academic scholarships and tuition assistance are available. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us. Discover your journey at OMA. Prepare, explore, and achieve.
Consider the Mobius strip. Take a strip of paper, twist it, connect the ends. This connection forms a continuous loop. Seamless, infinite. That's how your healthcare should be too. At Tanner Health, the Mobius is our symbol and our promise, representing our continuum of care and our commitment that the services you need will be here for you always. We're not just changing healthcare, we're redefining it. See more at tanner.org.
8:53. Welcome back to the Community Voice. This morning, talking about tort reform with two local attorneys, John Jackson, Cade Parian. And guys, we got about 6 minutes. Anything that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure that you get across this morning?
Here's what it boils down to. If you are injured by someone else, okay, if you're in a car wreck that's caused by someone else, one thing that I constantly hear from even my mother is that the other party should pay for my medical bills. All right, that's right. Okay, but what Georgia law says is that you're entitled to much more than just your medical bills, and this is statutes, case law, the Georgia Supreme Court. Okay, if you're involved in an accident that is not your fault, okay, you're entitled to special damages. Special damages are the damage to your car, if your car's totaled, the value of your car, things you can see with a receipt, things you can see on a sheet of paper, your medical bills.
Where you were going that day, does that have an impact on it?
Yeah, your medical bills, things you can see on a sheet of paper, things you have a receipt for, those are special damages. Okay, Georgia law also says you're entitled to general damages. Okay, that includes pain and suffering, all right? And no matter what type of injury you suffered, every injury has pain and suffering, okay? And the Georgia Supreme Court lays out factors, and quite frankly, there are about 15 of them, okay, that go under what pain and suffering is. It's everything from that hurts, okay, to the after effect of that pain, which is going to be the bruise on his arm. I just committed a tort against John Jackson, by the way.
And that tort reform does not limit me from suing him.
Yeah. So that is, those are general damages, okay? And general damages, they don't have a receipt, Okay, the Georgia courts say that the computation of general damages, there is no calculator, that it's left up to the enlightened conscience of a jury. Okay, why is that important? It's because the U.S. Constitution gives you a right to a trial by jury. Okay, and that Seventh Amendment goes to the states. Okay, it's in the Georgia Constitution as well. All right? This bill is taking away that constitutional right to a trial by jury. Okay? And if we're going to take away parts and pieces of that Seventh Amendment, then what's to stop them from taking away parts and pieces of that Second Amendment and that First Amendment and the right to free speech and the right to carry firearms? What's going to stop our Republican governor and legislators from dumbing down those constitutional rights? Okay, it's my understanding as a U.S. citizen that I have those constitutional rights. Okay, I can't. Why do we get to pick and choose which ones are the most important?
What do we see as the future? I mean, are they going to improve improve on tort reform next year? Will they take some things back? Will there be challenges to this law? Will Brian Kemp actually sign it?
Brian Kemp will sign the bill. He made it a priority. He's going to sign the bill. I think it's going to be sometime in May. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't signed it already, since it was such a priority. The changes will come in the courts.
Years.
It'll take years, and there'll be tons of cases that'll be decided under these guidelines until they're changed. One of the more important pieces of damages are the special damages, the medical bills. SB 68 goes specifically to the medical bills, called the collateral source rule, or as my favorite insurance brokers like to call it, and they are my favorites. They were on my house golf team. They call them phantom damages. It's when someone has health insurance, they go to the hospital after an accident, the health insurance that they pay for pays their bills. Well, now they can't get credit for their entire hospital bill now, only for the part that their health insurance paid for. But you can't tell a jury that how much my premium is. My family premium is $1,200, whatever, a month. But I can't tell them that. And I can't tell them how much insurance the person has that hit me. But they can tell the jury now that I have health insurance and that I didn't have to pay that entire hospital bill.
So basically what it boils down to is this bill as written right here punishes you if you have health insurance.
Yeah, people that don't have health insurance will get higher jury awards. And like Cade said earlier, I think on air, off air, that collateral source rule was overturned, or they tried to do it a long time ago. The Supreme Court of Georgia said it was unconstitutional to treat people differently that have health insurance and don't. They're trying it again. I think that'll be the first challenge in the courts, will be to that portion of SB 68.
And that's what you guys talked about, how over the years pieces of it will be adjusted. And it'll be because somebody took it to the Supreme Court.
As soon as this bill's signed, there will be litigation filed to stop it and let it work out through the courts over years and years and years.
Good fun. We will wait for that.
Litigation is fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, everything you guys said this morning was interesting. But yeah, I appreciate you coming out and talking about that. And if we had 2 hours, we could actually detail a lot more. But
yeah, we could.
We'll bring you guys in for some other big topic.
Sounds good.
Later on in the year. Guys, thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching and listening to this morning's Community Voice program. If you did miss any of this show, it'll be available in podcast form in about 5 minutes on our website, newstalk1330.com. And, of course, it'll be on the Newstalk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. It's up there now, and it will be there forever. Community Voice brought to you by Tanner Health System and Oak Mountain Academy.